So for this one, a couple things we're going to discuss today. I think when you're first year, second year, freshman, sophomore in high school, it can be overwhelming, trying to figure out where am I going to play, not sure where to start. I think that's kind of the biggest part. I guess the big thing I want you to get out of this is your job is to just prepare, like really prepare, do a lot of research. And then as this thing starts to pick up speed, for your college recruiting process, that, you're comfortable with it, you're ahead of it, you've done your research. So, if you aren't doing that research ahead of time, maybe you get further along and it's coming at you really fast. And that's where kids start to make hasty decisions. They aren't sure what to do, what the process is, or maybe they end up going somewhere that they aren't totally sold on. And kind of one of the reasons why I see transfer rates, they're pretty high right now. So we want to make sure you're do your research. It's one of your main jobs right now, but within that, we can help kind of further guide you. Like, what does that really mean? So a couple topics: identify what fits you. What are your player strengths? We'll give you some advice for showcases, some advice for ID events, kind of recruiting timeline, like what needs to happen in these 2 years. And I want to give you a little bit of a to-do list. So like between now and next year, it's what are some things you can check off your list so that you feel like you're in control of this recruiting process. So what fits you? You got to start with the school. That for me, it's the first thing you have to do, right? Start with the school and just start asking yourself things like, what major do I want to study? If you don't know the major, what area? The reason I say that is start there, because some schools may not have specific programs. If you want to be an engineer, that's going to really limit the number of schools you can look at. If you want to do, nursing, there's some schools, some big programs that it'd be really difficult to do while you're playing, collegiate soccer. I can't speak for everybody. There are some that have, I can tell you this personal story. I was getting flyers at a showcase event in San Diego, and a team manager handed me a flyer and just kind of quickly asked about the school. And I mentioned nursing, and she said, oh my gosh, like out here, my daughter's being told that you can't do nursing in college soccer, so, well, maybe some of the schools in that area or the schools she's looking at, but there are some that might say, no, that isn't possible to do the two. So you might want to kind of start there. It's like, what do you want to study? What do you want to do? And just make sure that the schools you look for have that for you. Okay. Another one I always say is location. You want to be close to home. Do you want to go further away? Some of these universities are in cities, lots to do, lots of internship opportunities. Others, they're not. It's more of a private, secluded kind of go away for your college environment, and then, home is a couple hours away. So you got to figure out what kind of experience do you want, because that's going to impact the schools that make your list. And if you're open to either, that's okay. Just make sure you're keeping track of like which ones are going to provide what. I'll give you another story. It was a kid that, she went to school, committed, got there, and I want to say in preseason, asked some of the teammates, hey, where's the nearest, it was a Lululemon store. And it's like, well, that's several hours away. Like none of those things are around here because it's a little bit of a remote location. And it was a little disappointing because some of that social piece wasn't going to be the same. And that's what that player was looking for. But you want to make sure you're doing some of that research. How important is the location for you? Is the campus the right size? How big of a school do you want? Some people want to go to a school that has a big football program or big basketball program, and I want to be able to go watch some of those games, and be a collegiate athlete, or I want something small class sizes is where I do better. The university I went to, Irvine in California, my lecture halls were 300 people, 3 projectors and 7 TAs. And I was just a person in a seat. So I rarely met with professors, but I was okay with that. And those are things you have to ask yourself. What are you looking for? Okay. Is it affordable? That's a really big part of it. So do your research. The one thing I do want to emphasize, and I put in here, some schools don't always shy away from that price tag simply because if you do a little bit of research, you'll realize that a lot of these private schools do give a lot of scholarship money, which brings the price tag at times equal to, if not less than, some of the public schools. So do some of that research too. Don't research and just look at price tags and then cross them off. Go a little bit further. What are their scholarships? What do they give? It's a phone call away. Sometimes it's on an email page. It'll tell you. And as long as you're keeping your grades up, a lot of those are going to be very reasonable. So make sure you're checking that off the list as well. Do they represent your values? I think it's an opportunity for you to kind of figure out, go off to college, figure out kind of who you are and grow as a person. You want to make sure the institution represents some of the values that maybe you hold dear. If some people want a very faith-based school, or a Catholic school, or maybe it's just a school where, that's one area. Maybe it's a school where you're going to be able to, there's a lot more to do. I went to UC Irvine and wanted to be by a beach community, and I wanted a big school, and I was able to find that. But what are some of the values that you hold dear, and make sure that the school has some that represents that you're comfortable there, and you'll figure a lot of that out as you start to do campus visits when you get a little bit older. But if there's some that are really must-haves, try to look for some of that early on. Okay, then you do the soccer part. Okay, so first is a school piece, then it's a soccer piece, and again, this is really important, because you would hate to do the soccer piece first, and then all of a sudden you get really excited about a school and you realize, what, I can't do engineering, or I didn't know it was this small. I didn't know it was going to be so expensive. So please make sure you're doing the school piece first. First bit of advice on the soccer side. Okay, freshman, sophomore, I think you need to spend a lot of time kind of figuring out, what are your strengths as a player? Who are you as a player? What are the things that you do well? You want to make sure you're developing into the best version of yourself. So what are some of those things? And I think oftentimes it's hard for players to simply answer that. What are the top 3 things that define you as a player? It could be 5, and that's okay. Maybe you're at 3, but that you're working on a 4th, and what that 4th is. Maybe you have some goals, like by the end of this summer, I'm going to be better at this. So, I think it's really important to start to figure that out, because it may come up in a conversation with a coach. What is it that you do well? And you want to have that, this is the type of midfielder I am. And with confidence, here are the things I know I do well. I bring that up too for another reason, is not all players that we look for are the same. Some coaches look for a particular mold, and this is what I need. And that's okay. That's what they're looking for their system of play. Others, you want to make sure you're growing into the player that you're comfortable being. It's easier to compete that way versus trying to fit somebody else's mold. I'll give you another example kind of on the next slide about what I mean by that. But it's okay to be an attacking center mid that has certain qualities, one that dribbles, one that shoots from distance. Like, that's fine. You can be the one that dribbles a lot, but you're still learning, you're still trying to develop that shot. That's okay, right? It's everybody's going to be different. And I think when we're, as college coaches, we're out there recruiting, we're trying to figure out, what are those unique things? What makes this person or this player special at the position that they play? So don't try to fit a certain mold. There are a few basics you're going to want to have, but try to figure out who you are as a player, have that really defined well, and then that's who you want to be. Go out and do that every single day, and go out and really sharpen those skills. Put your strengths on display. Play to your strengths. Okay, so, and step 1, figure out what they are. That might be a good conversation to have with your club coach. Just ask, what are the things that I do well? One other recommendation, when you start cutting film, so this is something at freshman year, sophomore year in high school, you want to start filming as much as you can, your games, and get comfortable with the process of cutting film, okay? And you may not find all of the best highlights, you're going to find some. And as you scrub through, you're going to start to realize, like, well, here are the things I wrote down that I do well, but as I'm scrubbing film, I don't know if I really see all of that. It's like, then maybe you either adjust that list, or you got to start playing the game to bring some of that out. So maybe it's just not on display, but it's something that you do well. I used to have a really good shot when I played, But if I played in a game, I would only manage to get off like 2. And that wasn't enough. My coach wanted me to do it more often. So I had to figure out what are some ways I can adjust the way that I play to put my best quality on display. So, okay, I have to dribble a little bit more in certain areas of the field and I have to take more risks, take that shot. And I wouldn't have seen that if I wouldn't have watched some film. Or if a coach wouldn't have, I told my coach, here's what I think I do well. And he came back with, well, are you sure? Because in games, this is what we see. So I think those first 2 years, you got to figure that out. That would be the most important piece. One cool quote that caught my attention while I was putting this together, Joey Batson, Clemson football, quit comparing yourself to everyone else, focus on you, bloom where you are planted. So if we don't need to worry about, I need to be this type of player because of somebody else we've seen that has done well there. You be you, right? Be the best version of yourself. So bloom where you are planted. I thought that was pretty cool. It's just a matter of focusing on what you can control, and again, you become the best player you can possibly be. We talked about different types of center mids. So I'll kind of break this one down for you. You really want to, when you're identifying your strengths, this is something we do at St. Kate's. We play 2 attacking mids. You don't necessarily have to be the same. These 2 are very different players, but they complement each other very well on the field. So, one of them is more mobile, more spatially aware, technically skilled, and gets forward, on the finish. So she maybe gets forward into the box to finish that ball that's served to the penalty spot. That's great. I have another one that represents different qualities. They're all important, but if you can't represent all of them, that's okay. Here's the 3 that this player, so the player highlighted on the left side has the blue highlights. Those are the 3 things she does well. So I ask her, you do those 3 things well all the time. That's what we're going to worry about. The player in green, she's a whole different player. You do those well, right? More of a distributor of the ball, very strong, accurate passes, can strike from distance. And every now and then, yeah, she's getting in on set pieces because she is very strong in the air, right? Or maybe she's that late trailing runner finishing across from a wide area. But it's really important because if they compared themselves to each other, they would have struggled. They would struggle trying to become a player that they're not yet. So, figuring out who you are as a player is really important because now, you're not going to kind of spend a lot of time trying to be somebody that you're not. And they complement each other really well. And as college coaches, we're looking at some of these things too. Sometimes some bigger programs, it's I have a mold, here's what I need, and that's okay. And maybe that's not the right fit for you because if you don't fit that mold, you'll fit somebody else's. Others will look at it and say, well, here's what I really, really like. I think this player could complement, my system, or I can adjust it a little bit because I really want to bring that type of player into my system. That's completely okay. And, these are conversations. You'll figure some of this stuff out as you start doing ID camps. Sometimes your club coach may know these college coaches and they might say, well, you know what? They really like players who do this. So I don't know if that's the right fit for you, or you're close. You could start to bring out this quality because they're going to like that more. So this, if you think about it in that sense, it becomes a little less stressful. You don't need to be a player that you're not, right? So figure out the things you do well, do them well all the time. Again, left the same quote on there just to remind us, right? So for highlight videos, freshman, sophomore year, you should be clipping film. So freshman year, you're probably clipping it. You may not be putting a highlight video together, but you're building that library of clips. So film all your high school games, film the club games that you can, and start clipping the things that you like. I attached this, I'll explain this real quick. I attached this, it was a Twitter post recently that a friend of mine sent me. And this is, I blurred out the name here, but there is a lot of truth to this. We watch a video and we watch the first 20 seconds. If it's good, we'll watch a little bit more. Yes, at times we will turn it to full screen because we do like those first 20 seconds. If you really like it, you keep going. Music, I'm not a big fan of having a bunch of music, but every now and then there is a good one. If you're able to impress them in that first couple seconds, get you a few more, maybe that first minute looks good, great. Next step, now it's being shared amongst the coaching staff. And now you're going to hopefully you're going to make that person's or those coaches their list for the weekend. We got to go watch this player play. It's a great way to separate yourself from everybody else. If you haven't done one yet, I would definitely recommend doing one. And, you know, like I said, this is pretty darn close to how most coaches are looking at film. It's quick. Put your best clips at the very, very beginning. When you're pulling clips, ask yourself, did the clips that I selected, do they represent me? Do they say what I want them to say about me? Because again, if you look at this coach's tweet that he put up, yeah, he watched for 20 seconds, then watched a little bit more. So in those first, let's say 30, 45 seconds, are some of those qualities that you are identifying as, this is who I am, I'm amazing at these things. Is it coming out in your clip? And if it is, great, hang on to that clip because you're going to need it for your film. You know, if it isn't, okay, can I find another one? Can I find a better one? Because the assumption with video is this is the best, right? This is you at these are the best clips you were able to find. So if you're going to put a highlight video together, make sure you're finding really good clips. Okay, 2 to 3 minutes max. We have the attention span of goldfish. We do not pay attention for very long. You know, we'll watch a little bit. If we like it, we'll keep watching. Okay, high angle, good quality. If it's a high angle, I can see more of the field. Okay, I do recommend have 15, 30-second clips, right? So I can at least follow what's going on. If you can find 5 or 6 of those and string those together into a video, you're gonna have a good one. Okay, especially if those videos kind of go back and highlight, these are the things about me as a player that I think I do well, and they show in those 6 clips, that will do a lot for you. Okay, YouTube channel. If you're gonna, I would have a YouTube channel if I were really, really serious about recruiting, and just kind of that's where you should host them. Every time I get a questionnaire or a player emails me and they don't have video, the first thing I do is I Google their name. Google their name with soccer, Minnesota soccer, something, see if I could find something on the internet. We always want to see really quickly before we even reply, is this a good player? You know, and sometimes if I can find a film, great, that might check a box for me, and then I go watch that kid play. So I would have them up, or if you send a coach a good clip and they just want to see more, yeah, they're going to poke around, they're going to find more. So maybe find a place where they're hosted, and you can put, 2 or 3 shorter clips on there. Let's get to the showcase piece. So freshman, sophomore year, you're going to be attending college showcase events. You want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. So a couple weeks out, make sure you're inviting those coaches to come watch you play. I would say a week out, make sure you're sending them that, hey, final updated schedule. Looking forward to having you, come out and watch me play. Do the questionnaire on their website, and you're not going to get much of a reply. The only reply you're going to get is, here's our camp information. But let's assume that they're reading all of it. Your schedule's on there. The full proof that we have on here in air quotes, it's just, what is the most detailed email you can send? Maybe that's a week before, maybe it's 4 days ahead of time. Because here's what we do. Sometimes we're really organized. We do a nice schedule for the weekend. Here's the fields I'm hitting. Here's where I'm going. It usually starts with players that have contacted me, sent video, and there's something about them I like. So they're kind of going there. Maybe players I've already seen play, or it's a team I really like, or a coach has said, come watch this kid play, you might like her. So it kind of starts there. Now, then there's others where they don't make that. Maybe they're not on that initial schedule. But what I can do is, if I get that last minute email, every detail is in there. So I don't have to go through and search, what did you send me 2 weeks ago, right? It's all in there. Here's my schedule, here's the field, here's my jersey color, my number, my contact information, everything. It's just a foolproof email, because I'll probably refer back to that one email that you just sent that has all the details. So, don't, even if you feel like, well, I already sent it to the coach 2 weeks ago, they should have my contact info. Don't put it in the foolproof one that you're going to send a couple of days prior. Truth is, we're not all that organized. I don't have all of it in a spreadsheet the weekend before. So that's really helpful. If I have to go searching for it, and it takes too long, it may not make it to the field. So the foolproof ones are good. Always reply after the event, thank them for their time. Okay, so we get back to the office after a long weekend. We got to sort out all of our notes. And a lot of times the ones that send thank you emails afterwards, so they told me 2 weeks ago. They emailed me days before. They emailed me a thank you. I'm probably going to start with those players simply because they've done their part. I keep seeing that name show up. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of work with those first. The other bit of advice here, I ask sometimes with my own youth players, who are worried about showcases and what do I want to showcase. And I always ask them, like, what do you want them to write about you? Because as a college coach, they're going to sit down for a couple of minutes. They're not going to sit for the whole half. Maybe they won't sit the whole game. In those couple of minutes, what do you expect them to see? What do you want your note to say? So here's a note, typical note that I would write. Wide striker, good speed, moves well off the ball, takes people on, go end line. Like that's a lot of information. Now, on average, maybe you get 15 minutes. They sit down for 15 minutes. You're not going to see all of that right away, but I need to see some of it, right? I see a wide striker take somebody on. It's like, okay, I'm going to stay and see some more. If I see a wide striker demonstrate, a lot of work rate, good speed, very physical in her challenges, I'm going to stay and keep watching. So, it's in 15 minutes. If a coach sat down and watched you play for 15 minutes, are you putting those things on display? What are they going to write about you? And sometimes it helps. Like, I want them to say this, and that about me. Okay, then make sure it's being done all the time. That way, when a coach does stop by and puts their chair down, it's a little bit of an audition. In 15 minutes, can I make sure those things are coming out in my style of play? I'll put a couple of just basic must-haves. First of all, every comment's going to be different, and it's just what they see, right? Basic must-haves, in my opinion, everyone has different ones, right? High work rate, some speed, physicality is always going to grab more attention. Players who are strong in the air, very critical. I mean, I don't want to see a player duck a header. That's a red flag. That won't help you. But make sure you're good in the air, have a good touch on the ball, be gritty. Gritty just means, hey, if you lose the ball, you get after him, right? Get that thing back right away. If it's a physical challenge, hey, just go all in, right? Get stuck in on those tackles. And it's a good gritty player, right? You're okay with the competition. You thrive in it. Player that communicates well, dominant presence. Or walk by a field and you kind of just you'll see some of those dominant physical presences, the players that demand the ball, right? Because they want to change the game. Those players are going to stand out. Players that maybe in the midfield, they're doing all that gritty work, right? They're all over the field. They are sticking their tackles. They are transitioning to defend. Their coach never has to tell them to do it, right? Those players are going to grab your attention. So those are some basics that I think, if you display a lot of those, I think you're going to be fine. You'll be getting a lot out of that showcase event. College ID advice. So a couple things here. Make the ID event the highlight of your weekend. Okay, if you're going to go spend money and fly out somewhere to an event, I wouldn't tack on a lot of extra things. I wouldn't do a showcase and then stay and do an event, or kind of put events back to back, or plan these activities. And now you're going to this ID event, you're tired because you spent all day in the sun, touring the city and just doing too much. That event, that is the most important thing. You're going down there to shine. So it's like a job interview or something. Just that is your main focus. So just make it the most important part of that trip, and go all in for it. Okay. Make sure you introduce yourself to the staff, and just make sure you thank the staff after every day. I can tell you, when I work some of these events, the players that always stick, the ones I see, they introduce themselves, they put a face to the name, and then they say thank you at the end, and it's a face to the name again. And for some reason, it does tend to work. I paid a little bit more attention to see what kind of player are they. I also think too, it's as far as a character, it's good character. Introduce yourself, say thank you. I like having student athletes that display good character, and I'll pay attention to that. Another bit of advice: observe the commits. Okay, what I mean by that is sometimes you're going to see committed players to that school. They're going to be at that camp. They've already committed. Observe their play styles. What kind of players are they? The characteristics. What are some of the main characteristics that they have? You might tend to see that maybe you're a player that you want to combine, you value certain qualities the way you play the game, but all their commits, maybe they're just a lot more direct, and it's just all about speed and physicality, and maybe that's not your style. So that might be a little bit telling as to, okay, this is maybe the style of play this program wants to play. So make sure you're asking that question. You're going to get a chance to ask questions, while you're at the camp. That might be a question you want to know. Like, maybe just describe that to me. How do you want that game to be played? So observing the commits is a little bit, can kind of give you hints about the qualities that they look for. Observe the current players. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, the current players will be working the camp. And I would pay attention to things like just conversations, character. If you're the kind of player that you are, if you're looking for a specific environment and, you're at this camp and all the players are talking about, a party, just partying, and that's not your thing, then maybe that's a little telling of the environment. Does it fit what you're looking for? Some are okay with it and some are not. So I think it's a good opportunity to pick up on some of that too. What are some of the things that those players are talking about, or what's their character like? Are they nice? Are they not nice? You're a really nice person and they're not. Like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't quite fit. So it's a good chance for you to observe a lot more than just kind of being there to showcase yourself. You get to see a little bit about their program. Take risks. Okay, you need to stand out among the rest. You want to make sure that at the end of that ID event, we absolutely take a list. Who are the best center mids here? Who are the best defenders here? Are you going to make that short list? Players that are kind of talked about afterwards. So how will you stand out? And while you're there, you can kind of start to draw a couple of comparisons for yourself. Maybe step it up. It's like, I want to make sure I'm being one of the more physical dominant players out here. So especially if you're going to be like a center back or a holding mid, things. So you definitely take the risk. Okay. The other one, ask specific questions. So if you get a chance to talk to the coaching staff, you can go ahead and ask those questions, like about play style. Maybe it's about specific majors, and that might help you figure out, is your major kind of doable at that school? So sometimes there's a panel with players. Other times, it's an assistant coach off to the side. You can ask some of these questions. You can also, honestly, during the research piece, look at sometimes they list the majors of the players. And that might help a little bit too. If you do see that there's a lot of engineering students there, it's like, well, then it's probably something you can do both. If not, and that school is really known for it, maybe ask that question. Is it doable to do both? After the event, send a follow-up. Just thank you for the event, send a follow-up. And again, it's hard because they can only reply, they can't reply until June 15th of your sophomore year. So don't really expect too much of a reply, but you still want to do it, right? Because it's still, again, it's putting your name, right, showing up on their computer. They got an email from this person again. It's a person who understands the process, who is doing their part, okay? A little bit of a timeline. So I just separated it by class, so like you can have a little bit of a list of things you should be doing. As a freshman, you're really trying to figure out what are your strengths, right? If you can have that down by middle of your freshman year, end of your freshman year, great. If you can have a little library of clips, or maybe it's just a bunch of 10 games filmed and they're sitting on this hard drive and that's what I'm going to work with, good. You should have that by the end of your freshman year. You're going to attend showcases. That's going to happen just, being on our club teams. ID events, if you haven't done one, I think there's a lot of value in doing them. Get comfortable with them, right? Because the first one, it could be a little bit intimidating. Just go all out, work hard, have fun, and then start to learn from each one. Okay. The other thing I would say about ID events, maybe more into like your sophomore year, is if you're going to go to them, with the recruiting rules, it's a little tough, but because they have changed and it's harder and harder for coaches to express interest in players that are freshmen and sophomore. Usually they would just go through a club coach, right? It's work with your club coaches on this, because they are still finding kind of creative ways to talk about, hey, it'd be nice if I saw this player at my ID event. well, that's a little telling, right? They like this player. So as a club coach, pass that along, and it's sort of like an invitation. You should go. Unless if it's a dream school, it's really where you want to be. Okay, go for it. Go as as that young freshman. See if you can draw some interest. As you get older, maybe junior year, once they can talk to you, you want to make sure they know you're coming. Don't just show up. Send them an email that you're coming. So the idea events, they can be a little bit tricky. Usually it's something that you do once you've already kind of started some of that process, or there's some interest. As a freshman, really research schools. I have on here, watch college games, do virtual campus tours, right? You're going to see more and more of those anyways in the next couple of months. So do virtual campus tours, watch a couple of games, whether you're watching, replays on their website. You can tune in. Most of them have live games, or have live games that they webcast, or go to a game. It's a great atmosphere. Go to a game. And again, that's a piece where I don't know if we do enough of. Go to a game and really self-evaluate. Can I play at this level? Like, can I compete here? Sometimes you go to a couple games and maybe you realize, yes, you can, or maybe you realize this probably isn't the right level. Looks overwhelming, looks really fast. Then go to a different level game. Right? There's a lot of different levels of competition. You want to make sure you're looking at all of them. Okay. As a sophomore, I think you should have a highlight video. At that point, you should have enough film. I think you want to have that list really narrowed down, especially if you're going to look at some of our bigger programs. If you're looking at Division I schools, you really want to have more of that sorted freshman, sophomore year. You should absolutely have watched a couple of college games. Now you're going on campus to take a look. Got a comment here. Oops. Sorry. Okay, I'll get back to share. Screen share. Okay, give me 1 second. I will get this thing sorted. Why is this thing going? Keynote. Okay, I think we're back. Okay, so you're going to get all these slides so you can use this as a cheat sheet. All of this is you are preparing. So June 15th, sophomore year, you have done a lot of research. You're figuring out who you are as a player, what you want out of your college experience. So you're filtering that list, schools that fit you and what you need. And now June 15th, you're ready. Probably going to get invitations to come to campus to do a visit. That's fine. You're comfortable with the visit offers that you've gotten because you've done your research. Or maybe it's like, hey, no thanks, right? I have a couple others that I'm really pursuing right now. Maybe at that point you've done enough research and you realize, hey, this is the level I'm more comfortable with. That's fine. But all this is June 15th, because you don't want to get to June 15th after your sophomore year and you haven't done a lot of this. And now it can be an overwhelming feeling. So I will send you this, but the whole purpose is it's just preparation. Okay. To-do list. My to-do list for you guys. If you work with your coach, work with your family, sit down as a player, just a couple minutes. What are the things that you know that you do well, right? Be able to check that box and say, here's my list. And I've had players share that with me and I've given them each some feedback. What is your next area for improvement? I think it's always a good thing. If you have 3 good qualities, what's your 4th? And what do you want to do to make it so that you're comfortable expanding your list and saying, no, I'm good at these 4 things. Like, it's not just 3 for me. I put in a lot of work on my 4th. So what does that look like? I would really challenge you to go watch games. Like, use the fall, go watch a D1 game, a D2 game, a D3 game. There's plenty of soccer in the cities. And, you know, there's games on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, right? I know that some of you have your high school games, but you know, there's going to be opportunities where you'll find ways to go check out a game. Okay. It's really good, especially as a freshman, sophomore, to go and see that playing level. It's totally different when you're watching it online versus sitting on the sideline watching it. The game can seem a lot faster, a lot more physical. And that's where you have to start to figure out, can I do this? And be honest with yourself. You know, can I do this? What level is the right fit for me? You should be working on your highlight film. So by your sophomore year, you want to have a film, 2 to 3 minute highlight video. And then freshmen, I would say, do a sample college coach email, right? Sample dear coach, and then send it to your club coach. That way they can give you some feedback, okay? And they will help you with a little bit of a format. And I can help you as well. If you send me an email, I can send you some sort of a template. I don't want to write it for you, but I can give you an idea of what things you want to include. Okay. And then the next piece is, let's break out into a couple of rooms, and then we'll make sure to answer some of your questions. So Casey will take the boys side, okay, and then Joe and I will take the girls side.